Now, as I was preparing for our teaching today, in this lesson, we're hearing from Saint Germain, and it is a dictation that is from the 1970s. In the 1970s, I was in high school in South Africa, and we lived in what would be considered here in the United States as a small town named Springs. It was known in those days as the province of Transvaal, but today that name has changed. Now, back in that time in the 1970s, when I was in school, I wasn't giving even a thought of what was happening in the world. And even the world at large, for example, or any places in South Africa for that matter. And I didn't give a thought of the challenges, the corruption that was infiltrating humanity, not a thought to where I would be decades later thinking back to those years and then being reminded that we encounter today in the world at large problems of corruption, the issue of our so-called leaders in our nation and nations of the world bearing down on the citizens and wanting to strip the peoples of their God-given rights. And one of those God-given rights is our right to live in freedom. So in those years while I was in high school, I had no thought of what Saint Germain or all the masters who brought to us so much to digest, the teachings on the dire situations for the children even back then, for humanity even back then, the teachings on the spiritual battle that the masters warned us about even back then. So let's now turn to Saint Germain's words. And he starts the dictation this way. He says, "Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Of all the gifts that heaven has given unto you, the most glorious of all is the gift of freedom, which you can, if you will this night, wear with the courtliness of a king of cosmos. I come to you then this night with a feeling of universal love within my heart, and the intent of manifesting amongst you the great mantle of the violet flame cape, that it may be held over you as all is my prayer, and may the power of the magnification of the courtesy and grace of heaven manifest within your hearts and feeling worlds. Let all discord then be stilled in that perfect feeling of God harmony, and the universal be adored as it has never been before in the temple of your being. For behold, the fullness of the cup of cosmic grace dwells within the Holy Spirit and the Christ consciousness that comes to you to quicken in the domain of your mind and spirit all vibrancy of joy and all peace and delight, that the culture of the new age may take shape within the giant force field of your mind and stimulate within you those perceptions and perfections that are the result of the indwelling presence of immortal grace. You call me Sanctus Germanus, and so I am. But do you know the meaning of the word? A holy brother whose heart desires, in the obscurity of manifestation, solely to perpetuate within you awareness of the God that dwells within the temple of your mind and spirit. You have heard it said, little acorns grow giant oaks. True is this. And so, from the very delicate and seemingly finite and small concepts of your mind, if you will it so, you can bear the great winds of freedom to the earth and begin the process of purging, whereby the earth may become a purified and fit habitation for the spirit that indeed created it. And what is the earth but one of the four mighty elements? The earth is the Lord's and the fullness thereof. And what of the water and the abundance of water that covers the earth? Would it not be well that men learn how also to control their emotional bodies, that that great calmness of spirituality may descend into the midst of your of you all and throughout the entire planetary body, that the indwelling presence of the Holy Spirit may magnify the glory of God on the very face of life. That men may learn how to wear the mantle of bold humility is also my prayer. A humility that is able to see how individuality may place itself at the disposal of deity, but at the self-same time may reckon with the all-power of that deity to raise him up. It is indeed as though one were bidden to a feast and then sat at the foot of the table, waiting the command of God to come hither and be honored. Yet your own divinity, your own God presence, has already honored you far above the power of any man to detract from the great grace that heaven envisioned for every man and for every woman, and desires to expand throughout the borders of all lands, that all lands and all people may understand the love of God, and that innate devotion that is within the force field of the heart that will summon those consummate fires. When the individual commands it and wills it so, it will produce those transformations in consciousness whereby individuals will scarcely know themselves from one day to another. So greatly will the power of God work in man, the process of change upon the altar of the being of man. And this is the twinkling of an eye, spoken of long ago by the apostles, the twinkling of an eye whereby all are changed. For whereas some may say, "How long, O Lord?" others are able to say, "How quickly, O God, thou hast transformed me." And so the potential transformation of life, the great power of outgoing freedom, and those waves of divine joy that reclaim in consciousness the individuality of man and draw him back to the heart of the great magnet, manifest ever in the world of form as spirit, descends into matter and infuses it with the power of the great potter's wheel and the means of transformation and the means of creation of new joy. Saint Germain says, "I come to you this night, then, to make a most unusual request. I desire you tonight to think about it for a moment before I actually ask you to decide. I am going to ask you to try an experiment with me for the great regeneration of your souls. Many of you have been burdened through the years with various worries and doubts. Many have been burdened through the years with the face of the world's pains and darkness. And somehow or other, it seems so incompatible to you with the great divine power of freedom that you could scarcely comprehend it. And yet you have come to accept it, which is really a most ridiculous manifestation. Don't you think so? And after all, beloved hearts of light, for this is what you are, if God has willed it so, and God is indeed God, how is it that if man is truly free, he can fail to manifest that which God has already purposed within the very channels of the mind and being of each one? If the mercy, the perfection, the love, and the intensification of heaven is already within you, does it not then follow as the day the night that ultimately there must break forth the song within the soul of man that is already there? Doesn't it seem to you that the singing of that song of freedom, of the passions and feelings of the soul that at last is able to be reclaimed, ought to be a song of great joy? Well, I think so. And because all in heaven also think so, I ask you to join me and us in thinking so. For then perhaps great changes may be wrought this night in you, which, who knows, perchance may also become most permanent and find themselves affixed to your very soul as a hound of heaven that refuses to let go, but pursues relentlessly the very being of man, until he is able at last to embrace the power of God as though it were his own. For of a truth it is. For each man springing forth from the great manifestation of perfection in the fires of the central sun as a vibrant spirit spark, infusing all life and hallowing space, is indeed a thing of joy and a beautiful thing forever. I come then to you tonight to invite you to participate in a little ritual with me, seeing that through the centuries and the manifestations of God's joy in my own being, I have developed somewhat of a momentum through the years. I have decided tonight to share it with you momentarily as an experiment. You will admit, I am sure, if you truly understand who I am, that I have placed myself wholly in the hands of God. There is no desire within my being save to satisfy the beautiful spirit of the living God in manifestation, to create those cosmic actions in the world of form and in the universe throughout that will glorify God and produce the majesty of his consciousness in all who hear our words and perceive the vibratory action of our manifestation. Bearing this in mind, then, and seeing that all that I would do for you is also an act of divine grace, which in effect heaven itself is ratifying already and producing as a miracle of possibility and illumination within you, then don't you think it is possible that you also would enter into a matter of human consent? Bearing in mind that the divinity within you has already consented to perfection, surely you ought to realize and understand that if the divinity within you has already consented to your perfection, it is simply a matter of bringing the outer mind of self into awareness and consent as well. So Saint Germain says, so what I ask of you tonight is to exchange with me. Oh, you say, only for a moment? Oh, yes, for only a moment in this fond hope that I buoy up now within my heart, as though it were within your heart, a desire to sustain a momentum within you of my God feeling of hope, my God feeling of the flame of freedom, my God feeling of the flame of intensification, and my God feeling for all mankind. I'm going to read that statement from Saint Germain one more time. Saint Germain says, oh yes, for only a moment in this fond hope that I buoy up now within my heart, as though it were within your heart, a desire to sustain a momentum within you of my God feeling of hope, my God feeling of the flame of freedom, my God feeling of the flame of intensification, my God feeling for all mankind. And now Saint Germain is going to ask us a couple of questions. And I encourage you to close your eyes, center in the fires of your heart, and as I share with you Saint Germain's questions, respond to Saint Germain from your heart and from your mind. So Saint Germain asks, will you accept then, in the name of heaven, for all mankind, the authority of your divine presence? Will you accept, in the name of heaven, for all mankind, the authority of your divine presence? And will you let that authority take command within your world of that outer world with its thoughts, its precepts, its errors, its darkness, and its light, and turn all into the joy of the light of God that never fails? In the name of the entire spirit of the Great White Brotherhood, and these are Saint Germain's words, in the name of the entire spirit of the Great White Brotherhood, in the name of the great effort of all of heaven and of the brothers most sacred who come with me this night, I ask you, will you exchange your mortal consciousness for my consciousness for a period of 1 minute? I'm going to read that question one more time, and then I'm going to give a 1 minute of silence for you to interact with Saint Germain. Saint Germain says, will you exchange within your mortal consciousness for my consciousness for a period of 1 minute? Saint Germain continues and he says, I can promise you that if you succeed in effectuating within the force field of mind and feelings of the intensification which I also hold, that it will leave a permanent imprint upon your soul, which will become a matrix of the living God, a matrix of freedom that will generate, and regenerate within you awareness of God and those magnificent determinations which, when summoned by the will of the individual and by the will of God, will produce in the world those miracles of faith and joy which can be a blessing unto the entire planetary body in its moments of utter darkness, when it is groping blindly, turning first to the right and then turning to the left. It will marshal those forces of joy and order in opposition to those forces of chaos and confusion, and help to produce in the world, wherever you are and wherever you will move, so long as you will sustain your own momentum of that God freedom, that activity of cosmic reality, which is the force field of the living God. Saint Germain continues and he says, freedom, freedom to be, freedom to see, and freedom for you as well as for me. Well now, beloved hearts of light, won't you close your eyes for a moment and envision yourselves not as an individual separated from God, but as one who is indeed a part of God. And in a moment, I'll give us another minute of silence so we can go in, close our eyes, and envision ourselves as not a separated from God, but as that part, very integral part of God. And how strange it is, Saint Germain says, and I must rebuke it, that some of you actually have your eyes open when I have asked you to close your eyes. Do you understand that I do not speak, but to illumine you? And it is sometimes a matter of human stubbornness, whereby individuals actually do not understand that by a refusal to act in my name, they are literally refusing to act in God's name. For we are all one, and I am speaking to you in order to effect this transformation. I'm going to give us another minute of silence, and in this, please close your eyes for a moment and envision yourself not as an individual separated from God, but as one who is indeed part of God. And now Saint Germain continues. He says, therefore, as you come now into a spirit of stillness where the universe itself seems as a giant top and is just about to run down, do you know what is taking place? It is a slowing down for a moment of your perceptions and your sense of perception so that you may increase the tempo and prepare you to be engaged in the very teeth of our cosmic attention. Listen then to what we are saying, for we are nearing now the point in our illumination whereby the great joy of God from our heart will be momentarily transferred to your heart. So I invite you again to center in your heart, close your eyes, and I'm going to read a poem that Saint Germain included in this dictation. And here it goes. Be open. Let the clouds of witness, the Urim and the Thummim of cosmic grace, the yin and the yang from the purified realms of space, hallow the dimensions of man's consciousness. For consciousness is a surge of joy, peace in the Holy Spirit. And those cadences and echoes of the past manifest in the moment of the present, that extend themselves into the allness of the future, that each one may see himself. As he is being spun, the fire of cosmic truth and energy from out the central sun, the drama of the ages unfolding in the plan, the light of God that bringeth grace unto the heart of man. Illumination's flood descend, thy tide of cosmic power. O universal life without end, descend this hour by cosmic power. In the name of the living God, I say, exchange. A cup of grace, O cup of grace, thou holy grail within the form, descend. Let light and majesty and power in each man then defend his pathway through the cosmic realms, his walk upon the earth, until by grace and mighty joy he sees each moment's worth. For man is God and God is man. Exchange, O mighty power, the wisdom flood of cosmic light into the earth this hour. O sword, thrust forth from God's own hand, a multitude of joy. O joyous realm descends on man. He knows this very hour that he is one with God above. All joy descends below, for heaven exchanges light with man. O see the power flow. We now have another 1 minute of silence, and then we'll go into the dictation by Saint Germain that is titled Summoning of the Forces. The print version of this dictation is available for you in volume 21, number 1 and 2, and it was printed in the Pearl of Wisdom on January the 1st, 1978. So let's have another moment of silence as we prepare for the dictation, and center in your hearts and exchange your mortal consciousness with the consciousness of beloved Saint Germain and all the saints ascended.